call the meeting of the Mount Clemens Board of Education order, please. Call the roll.
And Mr. Bruley. Mrs. Escalante.
Here.
Well, I don't know.
Dr. McFadden.
Video, I gotta mute my audio. I can't hear a thing.
Mr. Monk.
Here.
And we had to okay. Mr. Rickman.
Here.
Ms. Jarrett.
Here.
Mrs. Walker. Okay, I have Mr. Bruley, Dr. McFadden, and Mrs. Walker absent.
I saw Mrs. Walker and I heard Dr. McFadden.
Okay. All right, I'll try again. Dr. McFadden?
What the heck?
Here.
I can't hear a
Can
word.
you hear me?
Oh, I know what it is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Dr. McFadden.
Okay,
Mrs. Walker?
Okay, okay, I'm good. I'm good. It's me. It's not you. Me, it's so me.
I think a quorum has been established. Next on the agenda, Dr. McFadden, would you do the Pledge of Allegiance for us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. McFadden. Next on the agenda, citizens' comment. This is the portion of the meeting where you, the citizens, can address the board with any of your questions, comments, or concerns. We welcome your input and your feedback. We ask that you state your name and address. There's a way that the moderator will recognize those of you if you have comments. Be mindful that you have 3 minutes to which to make your inquiries, questions, or concerns. Also, you may not receive a response to your particular questions or concerns this evening. And last, I ask that you address all questions, comments, and concerns to the chair. The agenda is now open for citizens' comments.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Christy Nickel, MCEA president. Address, I'm still going to use 155 Cass Avenue because I spend all my time at school now. I just want to bring to the board's attention something that your your union has found a slight problem, and we have brought forth a potential solution. Several of the teachers were talking, and we noticed that children are attending classes, and we have removed drinking fountains and shut those down because of COVID precautions. So many of our students are in fact bringing their own water bottles to school. However, we don't have anywhere for them to fill those water bottles up. So your team of teachers collectively decided to provide for the elementary schools where they have sinks in their classrooms. We are providing 3-ounce disposable cups so that kids can get a quick drink of water when they actually need to rehydrate. And for the secondary complex where we don't have sinks in all the classrooms, we are providing each teacher with a case of water to give out to the students as needed. We were really concerned that our kids, they have so many needs, and I don't want water to be one of their needs that's distracting them from their learning. So overall, just to let you guys know, we have about 25,000 little disposable cups coming to the elementary classrooms, and just shy of 2,000 water bottles bottled water coming to the secondary teachers. So it should get us through January-ish, December, January, but if this, separation and no drinking fountains continues, we may have to find a different solution. But I wanted to bring the board a positive thing, a problem that we discovered and we solved, just to kind of take that off of your guys' plate. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you to the teachers for stepping up and filling in that void. Agenda is still open for citizens' comments. or you would have to let me, Pep, let me know if there's anybody, because I don't have that capability of seeing that I'm aware of.
I don't see anyone else waiting, Mr. President.
Okay, well, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. Agenda is still open for citizens' comments. Last call, citizens' comments. Hearing or seeing none, moving the agenda. Next on the agenda, item 5, consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, A, approval of the minutes from the September 16th, 2020 remote regular meeting, and 2, October 1, 2020 remote special meeting. The chair would entertain a motion.
So move.
Moved by Dr. McFadden,
Support.
second by Ms. Walker. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing or hearing none, call the roll, please.
Dr. McFadden,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Bruley is absent. Ms. Jarrett,
Yes.
Ms. Escalante,
Yes.
Mr. Monk,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman.
Yes, motion carries. Item 6 from the Business Committee. A, approval of bills for payment. The chair would entertain a motion relative to agenda item 6A.
So moved.
Okay, I think I heard Mrs. Jarrett. And
Support.
Dr.
That was not
McFadden.
me.
It was me, Mrs. Walker. This is fun.
I'm gonna start reading your lips, Mrs. Walker. It was moved by Mrs. Walker, second by Dr. McFadden. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing or seeing none, call the roll, please.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Dr. McFadden,
Yes.
Ms. Jarrett,
Yes.
Mr. Monk,
Yes.
Ms. Escalante,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman.
Yes, motion carries. Item 7, the Policy Committee. A, policies for second reading. Mrs. Beal or Mr. Monk?
Actually, I'm going to refer to Ms. Escalante because she handled that meeting for the policy as I was absent.
All right, sir, thank you.
Hi
Mrs.
there.
Escalante.
Yes. We didn't have an actual meeting because really the only thing that needed to be looked at were just these policies had to be pushed through for second reading, which the whole board would have received an email from Paul just kind of reiterating those policies and what they were in case there were any questions. Paul,
You went mute.
I'm sorry, did it just go off? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you said Paul and then you went mute.
Yeah, Paul and I were in communication that day, and I let him know that if we had anything new come through while Mr. Monk is recovering, for him to get in contact with me and let me know, and we would call a meeting to order to review all of those policies. But as of right now, nothing new has come through, and so all we're looking at are the policies that are in front of you for second reading. Would you
Okay.
like me to read them?
Yes, please.
Okay, so policy number 226, which is a special update for Title IX regulations. That's a new policy. We have policy number 5517.02, Title IX regulations that have been rescinded. Policy number 4362.01, which was a revised policy for threatening behavior towards staff members. Policy 5610 revised, emergency removal, suspension, and expulsion of students. Policy 5611 revised, due process rights. Policy 7440 revised, facility security. And policy 8450.01, which is new, and that's concerning protective facial coverings during pandemic or epidemic events.
Is that in form of a motion, Mrs. Escalante?
Yes, I would like to move that policy, all of those policies be moved in for second reading.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Escalante to move policy 2266, policy 5517.02, policy 4362.01, policy 5610, policy 5611, policy 7440, and policy 8450.01, second by Mr. Monk for adoption. Any questions, comments on the motion on the floor?
Doc, you almost read that as good as I do.
I was practicing, man. I knew you were down. You were down, so I had to step up.
Right. That's right. I want to thank Miss Escalante. She rocked. So she stepped up. Appreciate that, Christine.
Oh, absolutely. I really didn't have to do much because you had everything set pretty well before you went on recovery leave. So I'm glad to have helped.
Any additional questions, comments regarding the motion on the floor? Hearing and seeing none, call the roll, please.
Ms. Escalante,
Yes.
Mr. Monk,
Yes.
Ms. Jarrett,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Room. All right. Dr. McFadden,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman.
Yes, motion carries. Next on the moving the agenda are informational items. Item 8, art space. Mrs. Beals.
Yes, I would like to introduce Phil Gilchrist and also Terry Deaver to talk to you a little bit about art space. Phil and I have had some informal conversations about the possibility of using some of our unused space over at the secondary campus to create an art space. And he would like a chance to address the board and just to get some feedback from all of you. Phil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Beals. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time during this meeting. As Ms. Beals had mentioned, I am here with Terry Deaver of the Art Space Organization. Very quickly, many of you are familiar with who I am, but for those who are not, I am the Executive Director of the Anton Art Center in downtown Mount Clemens and co-chair of the Art Space Steering Committee, which has been working over the past year and a half or so, coming up on 2 years and a couple more months, I believe, to investigate the possibility of developing an affordable live-work space for artists in the city of Mount Clemens. One of my goals, and through the Anton Art Center, has been to work to establish a greater community of artists and general community support for the arts here in Mount Clemens, and help us to develop a reputation as a city where the arts have a home in Macomb County. The initial art space feasibility study was completed in, I believe it was, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, it was about a year and a half ago now, in 2019. And the initial sort of outlay from that visit was that there is some support here. There is a potential pathway forward for this art space development, which could include not just live workspaces, but shared artist studio facilities, potentially some creative retail spaces, and also some public and community arts-based spaces and other opportunities. We moved forward into an art market survey in this past year. We wrapped that up just as the pandemic was starting to settle in here. And the market survey itself helped to provide some data, which will be really critical as we move forward in terms of whether there is a sustainable way, whether there is enough interest in actually renting spaces in a facility like this from the arts community. The long and the short of it is that, yes, there is that interest. After having gone through an initial feasibility study and then the market survey, we've been able to gather enough information and data to move forward with this as a really solid idea for the city of Mount Clemens. The next steps that we're going to be undertaking as we move forward into what ArtSpace calls pre-development is site selection, finding the specific location where we would like to locate this particular development, and starting to look at some plans and really determine what types of facilities we want to include in this new development. Terry, would you like to speak to any of this? I want to make sure I'm hitting all of the important points.
No, I think that's great. I mean, certainly we can entertain questions around who ArtSpace is if you're not familiar, but I did want to just note that we are a national nonprofit organization, and we do these projects across the country in collaboration and partnership with local communities and local partners. And we've been really excited about the work that we've been doing in the local community through focus groups and through this information gathering, and finding that there is indeed a need and a lot of community goals that can be met through a project of this nature, from economic development to education to the proliferation of arts in the community, retaining arts in the community, bringing artists into the community, and potentially historic preservation and new construction. We do both as well.
Thank you, Terry. I will also mention that ArtSpace has more than 50 of these sorts of developments across the nation. You may be familiar with that, that is most nearby in Dearborn, the City Hall ArtSpace Lofts, the former Dearborn City Hall building. Excuse me, that's a great example of ArtSpace's historic preservation work and really creative reuse. So what we're hopeful for as we're moving forward here, we do have a couple of other site locations within the city, including the old St. Joseph's Hospital on North Avenue, as well as the vacant county property where there used to be a parking garage next to the courthouse downtown. We are always keeping our eyes open as we're approaching this phase for other properties which may be suitable for this type of a development. And in some discussions with Ms. Beals, it does sound as though the historic portion of the school complex might make a really good fit. What we're hopeful for is that the school board would agree to allow us to consider that portion of the facility in good faith as we're moving forward. It looks like we will be ready to enter into an agreement for the next pre-development work beginning either in late December or in January, depending on when we are able to line up the funding that will be necessary to pay for that work. So it's unlikely that we would be doing any very serious investigation of any of these properties until probably January at the very earliest. So I guess I'd open it for questions. I'm unsure, you know, we were able to speak with the finance committee of the board last week, but I'm unsure if the board as a whole would have any additional questions that you'd like answered.
Yes, go ahead, Teresa.
Actually, we did speak with you guys last week. The finance committee is who you spoke to, and you gave us the presentation. So there was a question I had that I forgot to ask at that finance committee meeting, is that the old part of the school has a lot of work that needs to be done. Would some of that be considered in your process? Because again, the school can't afford some of these things.
Yes, Terry, would you have any specific examples or be able to speak to that from some of your other projects?
Sure. We have a long history. We actually started our work originally doing historic preservation and renovation of older buildings for arts uses. And so as a part of that, it is almost always the case that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And that's part of the due diligence that we like to do in the beginning. It's just kind of understanding what that scope is, what needs to be done to bring a building back to its safety standards, to, you know, to functionality, to what it needs to be. So what kinds of resources are available to make that happen. And I should say we do private-public partnerships in our funding across the board. We stack layer funding is probably 10 high in the end. But so it's when we start looking at buildings, that's one of the things we want to find out, what needs to be done and how can we overcome the obstacles around that.
Yeah, I have concerns particularly, just piggybacking on Mrs. Jarrett's comments in terms of the physical condition of our building, and particularly with the environment we are in now, this COVID environment, with everything being up in the air, and we don't know, what's happening, 5 minutes from now, long less 5 weeks, 5 months from now. My concerns are, having outsiders from our school community in and out of our building in this COVID environment. Because right now I don't know what area in that building you were looking at, but there are certain areas in that facility that are unusable right now because of the physical condition of some of our structures in that facility. Not being privileged to the finance committee, this was the first time that I've heard in any detail about someone inquiring about the use of part of that secondary of the secondary complex, the older side of that building. There are so many concerns I have in terms of just us as a district getting getting the building together, and we still have to remember that we are a school system, and there may be room for others to take advantage of facilities that we have that we're not utilizing. But I'm just skeptical about moving forward to any certain degree at this particular point in time.
Phil, might it be helpful to talk a little bit about timeline and process?
Yes, absolutely. Would you like to, or shall I?
Go ahead if you'd like to.
So, Mr. Rickman, we're at the point right now where we're still figuring out what site location might make the most sense for this project as we move forward. We have some data from our market survey that says that we may be able to support, Terry, correct me if you remember this, but maybe it was 20 residential units, give or take a couple, and plus an additional maybe 15 to 20 private studio spaces, plus some shared studio space on top of it. The whole art space from start to finish, the pathway could take up to 5 years, to the point where we have a building that is leasable, a building with spaces in it that people can come in to utilize. We are only about 2 years in to that process as it stands. Even if we move very, very quickly from here on out, we're probably at least still 2 years out from the point where we would be able to have folks actually utilizing and occupying a space like that. What we're going to be undertaking next is really a closer look at the potential locations where this could exist. That would involve, Terry, I'm not sure what your process is if we were to complete a pro forma as an example, or how many folks might be involved, but I think it would be relatively minimal numbers of people, at least at this stage.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and maybe even step backwards, or take a quick step backwards. So as we're looking at part of our assessment around this creation of creative spaces for the local community is as Phil's describing, sort of identifying sites. And so it's pretty high level at this point. So the idea that even if you as a board were to say it was something we'd be interested in exploring, we're not making any kind of commitments or anything, but we're willing to share information if we have it about the size of the building as an example, or thoughts that you all might have had about any kind of reuse you would like to see in the future, if this would align with that in some way. But we've been conducting site investigations in other projects that we've been involved in virtually, as everybody else has, to be safe, because that's one of certainly our top priority for everybody we interact with and with our staff. So everything's been virtual. And so gathering of information for the foreseeable future really is around even just, yes, we're vaguely interested and willing to share square footage information or share any knowledge around what would need to be done, just to be able to have a dialogue in that way. So we wouldn't anticipate encroaching on anybody physically within a space anytime soon. It'd mostly be a matter of working with somebody on your end that could provide information or have a dialogue.
All right, I got a question. So, I mean, from my understanding, it sounds like this project is really in the informational stages as far as what the possibility may be. Not that it will be, but and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are looking at other buildings also. So, if is my understanding, you guys are really looking for what best fit the parameters of the program that you want to go forward with, and you kind of indicated that our building may be one of those projects.
Yeah, and we would, and Phil, jump in here if you'd like. We work at the request of communities, and so this wasn't something we were investigating. Where could we find a site? I mean, locally that was happening, but that came to our attention as something that might be a good alignment for both parties, and that is part of this informational exploration.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And additionally, we don't have as much information on the other sites either at this point. And so as we're moving forward, we'll be gathering that information from all of the potential site locations. And if there's a case that another site does come up that could be available, we may consider that as part of this as well. I think Terry was absolutely right in saying that, this isn't the point where we're asking for a commitment, and we're not looking for that either. Just the ability to investigate a little further and have some additional discussions with the district if this facility does turn out to be one that would be ideal to move forward with. I also think it's worth mentioning here, oh man, there was a point and it left just that quickly. Sorry, folks.
Well, I would jump in there because it flagged a thought for me was that part of our exploration of sites is also around alignment. We talked a lot when we were in the community about alignment with other objectives within the community. So that is part of the dialogue and why we always talk to building owners and stewards of sites that have an interest in community so that we can try to figure out what works for them for that site as well as for us. And so that's also part of that process of investigation. So it's not just about how much will it cost to renovate and how could we use and how many spaces could we get in there and are there any types of cleanup that needs to happen to make it a safe environment for everybody, but then how does it integrate with the rest of the community, the uses on the site and your objectives and goals as well. So that's all part of the work that we do at this level.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Monk, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you finna say something.
I was going to ask Terry if it would be worth, or if it is typical that the cost of renovation would be taken up as part of the development itself, rather than expecting or asking the district to do a lot of that work. We would take over the property and deal with that ourselves.
So, oh, okay. Okay, great. All right, thanks.
Any other question? Mrs. Walker, Dr. McFadden?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Is that okay?
Yes.
No, I just wanted to say, I think that this is a really, this could be a very amazing opportunity for the school. I know like it's obviously been clarified that this is like the very early stages and you guys are just kind of exploring to see what might be a good fit for what you're wanting to accomplish. But one of the things that stuck out to me was when you said historical preservation. I think when you look at our building, it's amazing. And there's so much history within that building. And just the idea of that maybe happening through the process of, having the opportunity to use our site as you are, deciding what route you want to go, or if that's something the district decides to do further on down the line. I think that would be really amazing. And I think it's really cool that you guys are even approaching us as a potential site or exploration of a site for what you are trying to do, and whether it works out or not. I just want to say that I think what you're doing is really amazing. And, I wish you the best of luck in this whole process because it takes a lot of work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I missed something in the conversation. What's the timeline for this to start?
We would begin the investigation likely in January. That phase of the process will take maybe up to 6 months. After that, it'll take another minimum, probably 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, up to 3 years to complete the remaining development work, have the architectural plans drawn up, and complete the renovations to the point where we have a finished occupiable facility.
So you're talking about January and a possible end of about 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. President, this here still have to go through like decision-making process or exploratory with the board, or what's our deal
Oh
on this?
yeah, there's a lot of decisions that the board have to make before anything structurally happens. The way I'm hearing this is just, and I have some other questions, but they're just interested in, as Mr. Monk talked about in his question, that there are also other facilities that they're looking into in the community. Our building, there may be other better fit, but they wanted the opportunity to look at our facility, and that's how I'm understanding it.
Correct.
So this is just, hey, we're interested. You guys might be wanting the site. We want to bring it to your attention, and then we go from there. Sums it up.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
I got a question in terms of the input, feedback, information from the district. What type of information are you talking about? What kind of commitment from our staff are you talking about in order to provide this information? Because everybody on our staff is overworked doing more than one responsibility, and if you take away to do something else, it puts you back in terms of the other things you're doing, particularly now with all the extra stuff that we're doing to keep us afloat because of the COVID and all the regulations and protocols that we have to adhere to and follow. All of our staff is doing extra. So I'd like to have, if you can, explain some type of information that you would be seeking and some type of how much time commitment are you looking at from our staff, and what kind of commitment are you envisioning from our staff?
Yeah, Terry, are you able to speak to that?
Sure, that's a wise question. Initially, as we're just to start gathering the information that we would need to imagine how many, or to space out how many spaces could fit into a building, and to start putting it into a financial pro forma to see what would the cost be at a square foot basis to renovate and to create the uses that we're looking at. I know at a minimum, things like somebody who has maybe information around the structure itself. So if there is square footage someplace, if there are any as-built kind of plans that can be shared, if there's any kind of studies that's ever been done on the building from the structural standpoint, maybe in the past because of safety concerns, or when it was no longer used as much. Maybe there's just materials that would provide us some insight into what the cost would be and how it could lay out. And then perhaps a single visit for somebody locally to be able to come in under, in a safe protocol way to maybe take some images or some footage of, just so we could see from our vantage here in Minneapolis, which is where our nonprofit is based, but be able to visually see inside of the building, which we can't do from, let's say, Google Maps as an example. So I would not anticipate it being a significant amount of time, and we would certainly work within this, obviously within the schedule and availability that you will have there.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I have one. This is for Ms. Bills. Ms. Bills, how do you feel about the preliminary stages of this project and your involvement of you and your team going forward? Is that something that you see or envision that you could supply to this nonprofit going forward?
Yes, I actually feel pretty strongly about this. I'm really proud of Mount Clemens and our school. And I'm sad sometimes when I walk through the second and third floor of where my office is, and there's no children. and there's lots of space that can be used by the community. And that makes me feel excited, and a way that we can give to the community and also offer some, then maybe some things to our students as well.
Okay, thanks.
So I would gather that there would need to be a motion by the board to approve allowing a preliminary feasibility study. Let's see, what's the name of the group? Let me help you.
You can
Art
say
space.
the Mount Clemens Art Space Steering Committee.
Will be to a motion to approve the preliminary feasibility report with the Mount Clemens Art Space
Steering
Committee.
So move.
It was moved by Mr. Monk,
Support.
second by Ms. Escalante.
Yep.
To approve the preliminary feasibility report with the Mount Clemens Art Space. Help me out. The last two words.
Committee, yep.
Steering Committee, Mount Clemens Art Space Steering Committee, to approve the preliminary feasibility with the Mount Clemens Art Space Steering Committee. It was moved by Mr. Monk and it was seconded by Ms. Escalante. Any questions, comments, concerns on the motion on the floor? Hearing or seeing none, call the roll, please.
Yes.
Ms. Escalante,
Yes.
Dr. McFadden,
Yes.
Ms. Jarrett,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Richter.
Yes, motion carries. We look forward to, as this progresses on, any further information details, because they'll take additional actions on behalf of the board moving forward with this process.
Absolutely. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir and ma'am. Agenda item 9, City of Mount Clemens use of media center for commission meetings. Mr. Linenberry.
I would ask that the commission, or I'm sorry, that the board not take up item 9 at this time.
We are removing item 9 from the agenda. Item 10 from the Business Committee. A, financial report. Any questions or information regarding the financial report? These are informational items. Mrs. Beal.
Just to let you know that we still do not have the information from the architect on the roof for the roof for the middle school side of the building. We are looking at a private conservation energy bond for that, which Mrs. Potter explained to the Finance Committee when we met last week. So we will not, I don't have any additional information at this time for that.
Okay, it looks like you're addressing item B. Was there anything from item A?
Oh, no. No, I don't have anything for item A.
Okay, and you're saying that we're still awaiting information for requests for proposals for the roof
Yes.
replacement.
Yes.
Yeah, I got one question. What is a not to exceed? What is it?
Well,
In the contract, oh, go ahead, Mrs. Beal, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. Early, you may know this better than I do, but my is will be go ahead.
Yeah, when you're putting out an RFP and you have a budget and you're not sure how, what the cost is going to be, you'll put in RFP and you'll say not to exceed a certain amount. So my bid comes in, it can't exceed that certain amount that's posted in the RFP or in the negotiation of the contract.
Oh, okay. And then I read that you're seeking partners to privately to issue a bond, Ms. Bills?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. I guess you'll bring forth more information on that. Under that particular one, we used to get a facilities report, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. President, I don't think we've seen a facility report since the first of the year. And that facility report was produced to give us an ABC, A being most important, B being second important, C being third important. And I think we need to reestablish that based on all of these repair needs that we are seeing. So I would suggest that we re-implement that, Superintendent. I think that was something Robin was doing. I don't know if he's still going to do that, but we need to have some type of report that shows up what our needs are at each building and what the importance of it is going forward, especially up under these budget shortfalls that we're looking at. So I haven't seen it. Maybe somebody, I don't know if the finance committee has seen it, but I haven't seen that report minimum at least since the first of the year.
Yeah, you're talking about a capital needs report.
Right.
We have not had a capital needs report.
Yeah.
Recently. Okay. Item 11. Are there any other questions on item 10? Seeing or hearing none. Item 11. Superintendent's comments. Mrs. Beals.
Hi, I'm going to digress from the agenda just a little bit, and I'd like to start by talking about Amber Harper. Amber Harper won the Make a Difference Award in Macomb County, and I believe Ms. Tomlinson is here, and I would like Ms. Tomlinson to speak towards Amber Harper.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So Amber Harper has been a parapro in our POHI department for 5 years, and she displays the utmost professionalism and passion working with our students. Amber's dedication to working with our students for their success and happiness is remarkable. She goes above and beyond what is expected of her in her role. She's in constant communication with families, as well as with the other team members of the students. She regularly incorporates new strategies and activities into her routines while working with the students. And one of her greatest attributes is that she recognizes the importance of small victories for her students and takes pride in their accomplishments. The Make a Difference Award is an award where faculty are nominated all across Macomb County. Only 4 staff members were chosen all across Macomb County. So it is a real honor that Amber was chosen from Mount Clemens schools. She will be recognized in November at the Parent Activity Committee with the ISD and will be honored at that time.
Thank you. Oh, so I'll just continue on. Our technology update, our student Chromebooks have arrived. They are finally here. They showed up yesterday, and we'll have 450 of them ready to be distributed by Monday. Robin has 2 workers on this right now. They are unpacking, staging, and tagging all of the computers. As we pass the computers out to the students, we're going to begin with our remote learners and then go to the AA cohort and then to the BB cohort. By Thursday, our hope is that all of the computers will be ready to be dispersed. The teacher laptops are all here as well. And Robin and his team are also he's really busy right now, setting them up as well. This is a little bit more involved, or actually quite a bit more involved than the student computers, because each laptop has to be set up to interact with the classroom technology. We're also adding 3 power strips to each classroom so that students will be able to charge their computers and that they'll be able to use them all day long. And a little bit of an athletic update. Our very last football game is Friday. It's also our last home game. The game is against Lutheran Northern, and this is our senior night. We have 4 seniors on the team, and so we are looking at having each senior bring 2 guests, his 2 parents, to be part of watching the game. So that night only, there will be 8 spectators. Let me see here. I have quite a bit more to talk to you about, but I just wanted to give you just an update. Count Day, it was October 7th. And the data collection for Count Day, where we clean up all the data, will end on November 18th. But right now, the preliminary count, and it's not going to vary too much from these numbers. At King, we have 52 FTEs. At Seminole, 451. At the middle school, 195. And at the high school, 238.69, bringing us to a total of 936.69 FTEs. Okay, now finally, just also a COVID update. As you all know, and as our community also knows, we had 2 positive cases of COVID and none others since then. Just a reminder that all of the protocols have been followed. The room has been deep cleaned. All of the students that were with that particular teacher have been quarantined for 14 days. The health department is following up with all of those students. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer that. The next piece is the return or the reconfirmation meeting, which is today, October 21st. We need to have a meeting such as this every single month, and I will be reporting to you at each board meeting, each regular board meeting. So we'll start. If you want to look in your packet, you'll also see this. Our pre-kindergarten, which is our GSRP program, is in person. We do, I believe, have a few hybrid students, but it's not really what our program is. At K-5, we have hybrid, which is the combination of in-person and virtual. We have virtual live synchronous, which is when the teacher is teaching and the students are right there learning all at the same time. We have virtual asynchronous, which is where a teacher would be on Google Classroom or Seesaw, and there would be assignments given and students would possibly watch a video of their teacher. And at this point, until all the laptops have been passed out, we are passing out educational hard copies. At Seminole, we have 192 students in the AA cohort. These students are coming in on Mondays, Tuesdays. The BB cohort, which is Thursday, Friday, there's 173 students, and there are 92 students using remote learning. At the middle school, we have exactly the same program that we do at the elementary, including passing out some of those educational hard copy materials for students who don't have a laptop at this point. Again, once all of those laptops are passed out, students will be expected to do their work on the laptops. At the middle school, we have 84 students in the AA cohort. We have 76 students in the BB cohort and 36 students using remote instruction. The high school is the same program that we have at the elementaries and the middle school. Again, some hard copies are still going out. At the high school, we have 112 students on the AA program. We have 98 students in the BB program. And in our remote learners, we have 35 students at the high school. For our special needs students, whether they're a high student, where the students have specific appointments where they are meeting with their teachers for their one-on-one services, our Wednesdays are set aside for our remote learners, but it's also an additional time for our special education students to reach and connect their special education teachers. The weekly rate of our two-way communication for the past month. So the week ending September 30th. Now, again, this was the end of September and it's still the beginning of the school year. We had our participation two-way interaction of 89.6%. At week 2, which ended October 7th, oh great, my internet's unstable, which ended October 7th, which was count day, we had a 96.8% engagement rate. And then week 3 and week 4 that ended the 14th and the 21st of October, 99.8% and a 99.9% interaction rate or two-way interaction rate. At this point, I would like to just open the floor up to public comments. If there's anyone out there that has any questions or anything that they would like to add about the program and how it's been going for especially these past 2 weeks since we've been we've come back for our in some of our in-person with our hybrid model. I would just like to open the floor to any questions or comments.
Patrick, you'd have to moderate that if there's any questions from any listeners.
I don't see any. Just one thing that I would add is that we have Tom Hanna and his son Jaqueline and also Mr. Brownlee, and they are following up with the students that we have not been able to reach or had contact with. So Mr. Hanna met with 56 students and their families in the past few weeks. There are about 100 students that he has not been able to reach at all.
Ms. Bills, that 100 students, is that number within that 936.69 or that 100 is outside of that 936.69?
That number is outside of the 936.69.
We have 100 students that we just have not been able to contact at all, any kind of way.
Correct.
Do we know if they've requested records?
No, at this point they have not. Well, actually, hold on, Mr. Rickman. I will have to find that out.
No problem.
I don't want to say something that isn't true.
Now, are these also, Ms. Bills, are these students that are still on the roll or are these students that we have dropped? How does that work? Because I know after 10 days, we have to drop them automatically.
Correct. So these are students that have been dropped, but I don't want to give up on them. And I want to make sure that they're somewhere. And so it's our responsibility to figure out what that somewhere is. And if that somewhere is not in school, then they need to come back.
Okay.
Let me ask, is it by the way they calculate full-time students? How do you get a 0.67 student?
The way we get it's actually a 0.69 student is because of special education. So sometimes it's a shared.
Gotcha. Okay, understood. Yeah. So we know we can identify those 100 students that are MIA. We just can't make contact with them.
Correct.
Or those are 100 that we still need to contact.
We have it is not for lack of trying, but we're not giving up.
Okay, I'm sorry. What house visit, home visits, or
Yes,
Or
so
what?
there's home visits, there's phone calls, people don't answer the door. Maybe they've moved, so, and we don't know where they've moved to, but that's information that we need.
Understood. Continue on, Madam Superintendent.
Okay. That's, my report has concluded.
All right, any additional questions of the superintendent?
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Miss Kroll. I'm a kindergarten teacher over at Seminole Academy. I was just curious if we were going to give any attention to what percentage rate the COVID percentage rate had risen to in Macomb County. Were we going to reflect on that?
No, we can. Let me find, I brought that home. Although the information that I have is from the 12th. We're having another meeting tomorrow, Ms. Kroll. So we usually have it on Wednesdays. So I would have had up-to-date information for you, but the meeting was canceled today because there was no electricity at the ISD. So as of last Wednesday, the 12th, rather, the 12th of October, there were 2 school-aged children in Mount Clemens that tested positive for COVID, and 14 of all ages that have tested positive for COVID.
Okay, I just remember from the last meeting, we had said that as long as we were at 6%, we were able to stay with the hybrid model, correct?
Correct, and I will know those percentages. They're still very low in Mount Clemens.
Okay.
So when you look, for example, Sterling Heights, there's 24% of their school age, 24%, they have 24.
So we're using our community, our city of Mount Clemens percentage, not Macomb County?
We're using both.
Okay.
We're using both.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Bills, I know we talked about this, and me and Earl had a discussion the other day about this because he said he had, I guess the percentage rate is low as far as Mount Clemens community, but we have families that live outside of Mount Clemens communities. We have families that live in Detroit. We have families that live in Sterling Heights. We got families that live in Roseville. I just looked at the latest numbers. Statewide right now, as of today, is 5.73, but Macomb County is 8.57 right now. So that's just a little FYI. So just making a comment.
Yes, and I'm just really thankful, to be honest, those student computers, it felt like Christmas.
Yes.
When they came in yesterday. So that puts my mind way more at ease, that we will be able to reach our students the way they need and deserve to be reached, because we will have the devices for them if something does happen.
Right. I'm 100% with you. Thanks.
Any additional questions, comments? Agenda item 12, committee reports. A, business finance. Mrs. Bills.
I can turn this over to the committee, or I can speak to it. Mrs. Jarrett?
I'm fine with that. We did have a meeting last Tuesday, and all our committee members were there, plus Barbara and Miss Beals, Miss Potter and Miss Beals. I would actually turn it over to Miss Beals, as she gave us a great update. It's easier for her to do that.
Okay, I can do that. So the first one that I will update you on is Washington Center. The board gave us direction to speak with a realtor to see the feasibility and the an estimated value, for lack of a better term, of Washington. So we met with Mr. Charbonneau, went through the building with Mrs. Potter and Mr. Samuels, and the commercial market value for office space is is weak at best, and the building itself would be rated at a C+. So it would be very difficult to market or sell. The county is not at this time, is not willing to buy. They're not interested in buying, but they are interested in having some conversations in regarding the lease. I was hoping to meet with JP Rhea today, but that didn't work out because of the Macomb County and the lack of electricity and things. So I'm hoping to meet with him either towards the end of this week or next week to talk about the lease and what our responsibilities are and what their responsibilities are. What we're actually looking for is an absolute net lease. So that'll provide us with a little bit of cash, and I'm saying little, and giving them a lower rent on the space, but they are 100% responsible for 100% of what happens at that building: maintenance, capital improvements, normal operating costs. So we will see. I have a couple of different scenarios that I will be talking over with Mr. Rhea, and I will get back to you when I have a better answer.
I got a couple questions on this. I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was kind of just startled when I just read the information. First of all, so there was a cost analysis done on this, and we have not. This has been a loss for us since this agreement been signed. But this agreement was brought to the board, where is that it was a plus for us. But I guess, and Ms. Potter's not on here to answer this. What happened? Why did this become a liability to us?
Mr. Monk, I don't want to speak out of turn. So not out of turn, but I don't want to say something that's incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
So I would prefer to move this item or to move this conversation to the next board meeting or to a work session that we can have Mrs. Potter attend as well. And I'll also have more information from Mr. Rhea. So the idea that it's a loss for us and the county is saying it's a loss for them. And it just seems like if we could just sit across the and have a conversation face to face instead of email, that we might be able to come to a mutual agreement.
Okay.
I'm not surprised at what Mr. Charbonneau is talking about in terms of the market, because 7 or 8 years ago, or might not have been that when we did had that building appraised. We did have it on the market for sale, and it was a lose-lose situation for the district at that time, because we had expenses and we had no income coming in off of the building. That's when we entered into the contract with the county. I'm not surprised that the county is not wanting to purchase the building. So I would hope that we could go and negotiate a reasonable deal for the district and the county as well, where it's a win-win for both. They need and want the facility. We have a facility, but we have needs that we have to have met, where it's not costing us for them to be in the building, utilize the building. So that's my hope, that we could, the team could negotiate something that's a win-win for both sides.
That's what I'm hoping too.
Any additional questions, comments on agenda item 12A? Let's go to agenda item, let's see, I guess it's number 12A2.
Okay, the Carnes Center. I know this is new. Board book premiere, we're all learning it. Paul's doing a great job, but anyways, A2, Carnes Center. So Mrs. Potter and Mr. Samuel escorted members of Advancing Macomb, the YMCA, and Clinton Township on a tour of the center. Then there was another meeting with the mayor and Don Johnson, the city manager, and Diane Banks of Advancing Macomb. They like to see the center. We would like to see the center open and available as well. They are looking, they're hesitant to enter an agreement that'll cause a financial bind beyond 3 to 5 years, but we all know that what we would like is to not have a financial bind in 3 to 5 years if things fall through. They're looking at probably an interagency agreement with Macomb County, Harrison Township, Clinton Township, Fraser, and Mount Clemens. I believe that Harrison Township does not have a community center, or it was Clinton Township. One or the other did not have one, and they would be interested in partnering to create that. One possibility also is having the city create a special millage to be used only for Parks and Rec, and that would include programming to keep the CARMs and 2 other city-owned facilities in working order. So we're working on it right now. It's still a work in progress.
So
next,
I got a question. So if I'm understanding this correct, I really wish we would have had a workshop. We could have talked all this through. But from my understanding, so let me make sure I'm reading this correctly. So Advanced Macomb initially was going to take this project over, going to do the funding, the whole 9 yards, and they wanted to move forward and they wanted to run it. And now it looks like that's not going to happen. There's some talk about an interagency agreement with all these other communities, Harrison Township, Clinton Township, Fraser, Mount Clemens. But it sounds like nobody wants to go on the hook for the building.
Right, right.
And I'm real afraid. I mean, they said is that, and we wish to support the district as much as possible. I read that, was like, oh, okay. What is an interagency agreement? What is that?
So it would be interagency programs would involve the 4 cities and a piece of, and bits even of Macomb County coming together and determining what the programs would be, and there would be an agreement for all 4 of them to support that particular community center. So it wouldn't be just Mount Clemens Community Schools, for example. We would be removed from it, but it wouldn't be just Mount Clemens. It would involve all the other communities as well.
So
and it's sharing.
Right. So they're looking for Harrison Township, Clinton Township, and Fraser to share in the cost of a community center that's right smack dab in the middle of Mount Clemens.
They would use it for their seniors. They'd use it for their kids. So the programs would be developed for all 4 communities, probably at the same time.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? I'd like to just piggyback on what Mr. Monk was just okay to. I can't, it's difficult for me to envision Clinton Township, Harrison Township, and Fraser going into an interagency agreement for the use of a community center that's in Mount Clemens. I really can't see where Fraser would have people drive from Fraser to Carnes Center as a recreation center. It's just hard for me to fathom that. And I'm not sure if that was the intent of the original use of that building for, I know it said for community activities, but that money was given to Mount Clemens. And then it was given, the school district decided to take up. So I would have to, I'm not against it, but I'm just saying it's difficult for me to envision that's happening. I know we're looking at all probabilities and possibilities.
Right.
It's just hard for me to envision, that kind of activity happen. I would also like us to, maybe look into trying to partner with a boys and girls club, or some other activities. Because I recall when we opened the community center, and it goes back to something Mr. Monk had said earlier, that we had tons of people who wanted to come in and advertise their programs or bring their programs. But when we asked them to bring some money along with that, everybody backed away from it. And it kind of seems like that same situation with, and I'm not saying that, what's the name of this organization that's with
Advancing Macomb?
Yeah. Advancing Macomb. I'm not saying that they're pulling it away from it, because, you know, there's some money involved in it, but it's not as clear cut and as smooth as it was presented. You know, well, we give it to the city, and the city, and we partner with, you know, Advancing Macomb, and then we'll give it to the city, you know, for Advancing Macomb to bring programs in there. Nothing is always as simple and easy as it seems. But I think we should continue all avenues of what it is that we need to potentially get something going. And if it is a interagency thing, I'm doubtful that's going to happen, but I'm not against, you know, moving forward and seeing if we can get that to go. But I'm also, you know, maybe we should look at some other type of nonprofits, boys and girls clubs, and, you know, or some other kind of nonprofits that may be interested in partnering to the use of that facility for community purposes. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess we will go, let's see, down to the audit report.
This will be quick.
Audit update, not the audit report, excuse me, audit updated. We're not the report,
Right.
audit update. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's an audit update. The audit is ready. I received a package in my today in my office with all of the audits. It was not completed in time for the finance committee or a work session on Thursday. Everything was finally completed by Friday. So during our next committee meetings, we will present the audit to the financial committee. Then we will have the work session, and then we will have it formally presented at the next regular board meeting in November. The budget update, budget amendment will be presented in November of 2020. So some of the things that are updated is the federal courts have decided in our favor for about $40,000 in federal CARES funding towards the district. So we had this set aside for St. Mary's, and we do not have to do that. So that really helps. The states reestablished a per pupil funding allowance back to the same amount that it was for last year. So that's good news, because we were expecting a decrease of $175. There's a one-time increase for the 2021 school year of $65 a student. And Barbara has, Mrs. Potter, I'm sorry, has based her budget on 800 students district-wide. And as I spoke earlier, we have 900, I can't remember the exact.
938.
936.69.
936.69.
936.69. So that looks like it's a little bit in a little bit better. It's in better shape than we had thought. The cafeteria fund 25 had a fund balance of $106,984.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bills, I got a question on the budget.
Sure.
When will we as a board receive a budget assumption report that we can review before that amendment is presented to the board? Because we've been hearing a lot of numbers. First off, for started, we was $1 million down. Now we getting this, we got this 200 coming in, but we lost this. We got this 65 coming, but we lost that. As a board member, I need to see something in front of me that's giving me a 3-year aggregate assumption of what is going to be happening with a budget. And we haven't seen that.
Yes, I will, I'm going to go on the record here and say that for the finance committee meeting, there will be a budget and budget assumptions ready for the finance committee in November. And I don't have that date right in front of me, but
Okay, can that information be sent out to all board members? I know you're gonna present it at the finance, but can that be sent out to all board members? Because I would like to see that before I have to look at it at a board meeting and I'm supposed to vote on it. I like to look at it, digest it, review it, so I can form my opinion on it.
absolutely, Mr. Monk. But we will probably do is present it to the finance committee, and then that day or meeting, we will send it out to the rest of the board.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, I'm going to ask the superintendent to present that to the personnel and curriculum committee also, Mr. Monk.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Hill, I have a question regarding the CARES Act.
Yes.
You know, we said we might get an additional $200,000. What is the time frame that they've given us to expend these dollars?
Actually, this is the most generous one out of all of them. So most of the other grants, we need to expend the money, excuse me, either expend the money or have it accounted for by December 30th of 2020. The CARES Act, this is the first amount of money that we got. It's the most amount of money that we got. It was $800 and some thousand. And we do not have to expend it until September of 2021. And then we have an entire year of carryover for that one alone.
Understood. Okay. Yeah, that's what, because we've got some expenditures that we're going to need to deal with COVID that we don't even know yet. So that's why I was asking, because I knew about the December deadline for some things. That's why I was inquiring about that. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I'll just go on with the cafeteria fund. There's a fund balance of $106,984 at the end of 2020. So that would be June 30th of 2020. But right now we've had a net deficit income of $85,930. And the reason for that is because we aren't serving lunches. We get reimbursed for the lunches that we serve, and even with our meet and greet, grab and go lunch that we have, it has not been enough. So hopefully bringing the kids back will change some of that fund balance. So right now there's only a balance of $21,000 in our cafeteria fund, and it will be the next time SFE invoices us, that money will be depleted, and hopefully we'll be able to fill and build that fund balance again. Otherwise, the general fund will be responsible for covering that difference.
Okay, I have a couple questions here. The first one is a statement. The food service has never been a drain on the general fund since I've been on this board, and Earl, you can correct me before that. It's always been self-sustaining, self-sufficient, and or is always had a surplus of funds.
Right.
Now, I do understand that what we serve is what we get reimbursed for. But then you have other costs in there where you have controllable costs, non-controllable costs, and fixed costs. And you don't have to answer this now, but we need to know what were the uncontrollable costs and fixed costs that added to us having
$85,930.
$5,000 over budget, which knocked our surplus down to what,
21,000.
Yeah, 21,000. Now we're probably going to be looking at the general fund picking up the slack for the food service. I'm not from somebody who spent 38 years in the food service. I'm not understanding how that type of money just got blown without red flags going up like crazy.
I will find out and get back to you.
I don't think it's blown, Mr. Monk. It's the fact that, for 4 months, we have not served the number of meals that we generally serve. And that's how we get our money, is by the number of meals that we serve. And when we didn't have students in school, and the little bit, the meals that we did, put the plan to deliver over the course of last semester, didn't come close to the number of meals that we serve on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis that would attribute, because we're not getting paid for that now, where in normal times we would get paid for those services. And we still had some fixed costs like you mentioned, but
Right. That's what I'm.
Yeah, we just didn't have the income coming in from serving, but upkeep of equipment, that's a fixed cost.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm getting to. Well, see, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the food is what we serve, we get reimbursed for. That's a wash. So we order food to serve the food, we'll get reimbursed for the food that we order. So it's no cost to us. But now you got to look at the fixed cost. So fixed cost of 85,000, I don't know. I'm outside looking in. It seemed like there's some fixed costs that wasn't adjusted because of us not serving food that stayed the same. And now that's going to become a drag on the general fund if we don't get a handle on those fixed costs.
Understood. Mr. Bill, I heard you say you would look into that and update, bring a report, or let us know that information.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that's another report that we used to see, Mrs. Bills, that we used to see a report on the cafeteria, on food service. We used to get that report every month on what was spent, what the budget was, if there's a surplus, if there was a deficit. We used to get that, and we haven't seen that either.
Okay. Well, we'll see what we can do.
Thanks.
Mrs. Bill.
Hold on, I've taken some notes here. Okay.
Okay.
That's it. In terms of the business finance and moving to community coalition.
Okay, these are under reports, so I would have to. Mr. Lindenberg, you got anything for us this evening?
Yes, a reminder that Saturday we are still hosting our National Drug Take Back Day at the Wilson Gym from 10 to 2. This will be a drive-up event, so people can bring their unused and expired prescription medications, liquids, pills, anything of that nature. They can bring them here. They will be disposed of properly by the Macomb County Sheriff Office. They will stay out of our lakes and rivers, and they'll stay out of the hands of our young people. That's all I have.
Mr. Lindenberg, I think you might have mentioned it, but help me out in my recall. Has Trunk or Treats been canceled this year?
I do believe that Pop Sweets and Treats is hosting a small one there on Cherry Street in front of that store there.
Gotcha. Okay.
So right by the Roscop lot, there's that little Cherry that comes right down there. They're using those side spaces over there for a small trunk and treat. And that would be Saturday as well.
All right.
That is being sponsored by Pop Sweets and Treats, not by the Optimist Club as it normally is.
Understood. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Curriculum personnel.
I am here. We had our meeting last Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Mr. Muck was, of course, doing the Zoom. I'm glad he's doing better tonight. I am going to have the superintendent speak on this because a couple of things we talked about that curriculum personnel kind of went backwards from the business committee to us back to them. So we sent things back to get rehashed. So Madam Superintendent, you want to speak on this subject?
To be honest with Dr. McFadden, not at this time. I'd like to have the budget prepared and in our hands before we make some recommendations.
And that's where we at, Mr. President.
Yep.
So pretty much everything it was like a resend back from one committee to another, but the discussion came across out of order. if that makes a little bit of sense to you. It's like putting the buggy before the horse. Mr. Monk, you remember how that meeting went, and I think you understand what I'm talking about. There's some information that we need to follow up first on our end before we send back to the business committee.
Yeah. Doc, it was cart before the horse, not buggy.
Yeah, there you go. So that's where we at, Mr. President. The report is that's the report. We're working it.
Understood. Any questions for clarification of the chair? All right, thank you, Doc. Any additional information for us from the poly, Mr. Monk or Mrs. Escalante?
No, I don't, not unless Mr. Monk has something.
I just want to say thank you, Ms. Escalante, for filling in. There was a e-blast that came through that pertains to Open Meetings Act amendment, which will be coming forth. There's some changes starting the first of the year, and also some other changes 2021. So when we get those amendment updates, we will bring those to the board. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Any additional questions of Mr. Monk? Thank you, sir. Legislative committee, there was a meeting on a Zoom meeting on October the 13th, and I had another meeting and I was unable to attend. Mrs. Beals, the superintendents, usually have some of the same legislative report that the board members do. Is there anything in particular? Maybe I know that $200,000 might have been, no, that wouldn't have been part of the $65 would have been part of the legislative update, but not the 200,000 because that was particular to our district. Any additional information we might need to provide us with?
Just there have been some back and forth on the Open Meetings Act, whether or not we could continue to have our Zoom meetings, whether we could go back face to face. When the governor's executive order was rescinded by the state Supreme Court, the bottom line is we can continue to have our Zoom meetings. Actually, at one point, they were considering telling us that any meetings that we had after April that we had electronically, we would need to rehab them in person and re-vote on absolutely everything. So thank goodness we do not have to do that. And we also can continue our Zoom meetings until the end of the school year. I'm sorry, the end of December. So we're all set there if this is what the board chooses to do. Or we could go back face to face. What we were doing in the cafeteria with our board meetings is also perfectly acceptable and very safe.
All right.
That was it.
Okay, thank you. Board comments. Mrs. Escalante.
Well, I just want to thank everybody that hopped on tonight to be part of our meeting, and definitely want to congratulate Miss Harper. I can personally say I've seen her in action over the years, being at Seminole, and I think she most definitely earned that award. That's quite an honor. So congratulations to her. Good luck to the football team on their last home game for senior night. And let's see, I'm trying to think. I hope everybody gets ready for fall back. That's my favorite, when we fall back. I love that extra hour. I don't know if it's psychological, but whatever, because I like it. I wish we would just keep that time zone. But that's coming up soon, right? Isn't it like early November we fall back? Yeah, November 1st, is it? Okay. And thank you to everybody that's working hard to keep our kids in school, as well as keep the kids that are still on virtual up to par and working hard. And I know that it's well, I can't say I know because I'm not a teacher, but I would imagine that it's been extremely challenging. And I admire each and every one of you, as well as all of the staff behind the scenes, the custodians, Robin, his crew, everybody, everything you guys are doing to continue to keep our kids safe and healthy and in school, engaged and learning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Escalante. Mr. Monk.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to say congratulations to Ms. Harper for her outstanding dedication to student development. You know, that's always nice, especially when one of our own. But I want to say thank you to Madam Superintendent and her whole entire staff in the district from top to bottom. This is not easy. And I know you guys are working hard, so we appreciate everything you do. I'm very, 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 very glad to see those Chromebooks has come in. So, you know, good to see that. So all of our students can get everything. I want to thank everybody for those well wishes for my surgery. It was a success. So thank you for those. And I just want to say, everybody, stay healthy, be safe, wear your mask, listen to the science, social distance. This thing is about to get worse, but together we can get through it if we listen to the science and stay social distance, wash our hands, and wear the mask. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Monk. Mrs. Jarrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I'd like to also jump on and congratulate Ms. Harper and appreciate and also congratulate our superintendent and staff for bringing the students back to school and keeping everyone safe. That is very important. I really, you know, it's just the season is upon us to get ready, prepare for things to come. Again, all things will pass. We just have to make sure that we are safe and do the things that we need to do. And as Mr. Monk said, is to, you know, follow the rules and the science, because we're going to be needing that. It does work. It is effective. So I want everyone to be safe, ask questions, keep moving forward, and Mount Clemens will be back to hopefully some more semblance of normal by the end of the year. Happy Halloween too. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. McFadden.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I did what everybody said. I did copy it. But the one thing I want to also talk about is the football team. They did pretty good the last game. I heard they put up 60 points. And that's pretty impressive. I mean, it is what it is. Football is football. You could be playing somebody else or somebody this or somebody that. But 60 points is 60 points. I say that because I know this Friday or this week coming up is their last home game. And for those seniors to get those two parents to come see them play, I think that's nice. I think that's a way to send them out and to give them some form of normalcy, which a lot of it is probably a lot of people are yearning for, even myself. But the new normal is going to be the new normal. So with that being said, we are going to take precautions. We are going to do the right thing. And we're going to use our common sense. We're not going to follow the directions of everybody else. We're going to follow beyond the directions of everybody else. We're going to make sure we are over deliver and not under promise. So I'm pretty sure our protection status is good. I've been to the schools. I've been to Seminole a couple of times, and the process is working. I think the way Seminole is laid out, even the high school and the secondary complex, I think we're doing what needs to be done to fight the COVID situation. Those are my comments. I want to give kudos to the staff for that. The superintendent and her staff, her team, the teachers, the bus drivers, all the way down to the ground crew, to all those that are working and making things better. So those are my comments. I want to give them props and let them know that they are being recognized. And I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McFadden. Ms. Walker.
I just want to echo my colleagues' comments and tell everyone to please stay safe, stay healthy, mask up Michigan, mask up everybody. We will get through this. You know, they have a pandemic every 100 years, they say. This is our one and only pandemic. So we get through this and we're well, you know, pray to God, scot-free. We've you know, made it through it. So stay safe, stay healthy, and happy Halloween. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. I would like to begin by saying thank you to the teaching staff, our support staff, our custodians, our cafeteria, food services people, everybody who played a role in allowing us to be in a position to deliver educational instructions in person. I say thank you to the parents who entrusted the decision of the recommendation by the administrative team to the board to move forward in bringing some forms of face-to-face learning for a learning environment for their students. I tell people that we have the Burger King model. You can have it your way. If you want to stay home remotely, we've got that. If you want your students to come face-to-face, we've got that, even though it's not 5 days a week, but we still have face-to-face scenarios for students. So thank you to the parents for entrusting the decisions by the Mount Clemens team as we move forward into the environment of bringing face-to-face learning environments for our students. You know, people get startled when they look at numbers, particularly when we're talking about the number, the percentage in the county for COVID. When you look at, we do look at those numbers, we take those numbers seriously, and we also do micro and macro analysis of the numbers. Even though the numbers for the county are increasing, the number for Mount Clemens is much lower than southern ends of the county, which shoot those numbers up. And even some of our northern neighbors in the county are having tremendous up spikes in the diagnosis of the disease, of the virus. So we do take this seriously, and I'm pretty sure I've spoken with the superintendent on many occasions that if we feel and we see the numbers determine that we need to go in a different direction, with no hesitancy, she would you know, have a board, you know, call for an emergency board meeting to recommend to us to move in a different direction. So we are you know, doing our due diligence as we work through still trying to provide face-to-face instructional learning for our students. We hope that we don't go back to a phase 3, but we're in phase 4 right now. And if people don't practice social distancing and wearing masks and being safe, there's a strong possibility that we could go back to a phase 3 environment, and then we have to do something differently. We're also right in the beginning of the traditional flu season, and to each his own, but I'm strongly advocating for people get flu shots. That's part of being healthy. That's part of being safe. I'm not somebody who's never been a strong proponent of getting flu vaccinations, but I did get one this year because I wanted to be, you know, the symptoms of flu and COVID, they're parallel each other. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting myself at risk for at least one virus that's out there in the universe. So just be mindful and keep yourself safe. Testing is free at the county off of Elizabeth Road. You need to get tested. Do so. I'm that type of person. I'd rather know than guess. And if there's mechanism and means by which you can know, I would recommend that you do so. To Mrs. Harper, congratulations. That's an awesome achievement and a great honor. And I'm pretty sure you're proud. And you have very much right to be proud, because that's a fantastic honor to be nominated for such a prestigious award for dedication and commitment to helping students, particularly our youngest students in their development, their development in their educational process. So kudos to Ms. Harper. To the Battling Bathers, we wish you luck on Friday. This is senior night. It's our last home game, and it's our last game of the season because of the shortened season because of the COVID virus. We wish you good luck. We want to go back to normalcy, but this is not the time yet. We wish we could have more people in the stands to watch the game, but this ain't the time yet. You might be able to stay in your car and get some fence space. I didn't say that, but you might be able to sit in your car and get some fence space to watch the game. I didn't say that, but we're not allowing for precautionary measures. We're still limiting the number of people that we have in the stands at that event. You have the option on November 3rd, to go to a polling place and cast your ballot, or you have an option to request an absentee ballot. But I encourage you all to vote. I'm not telling you who to vote, how to vote, but vote. That is part of your civic responsibility. And all I ask is, when you get a ballot, don't forget to turn it over on the back. There's a lot of important stuff on the back of that ballot. There's more information and more positions on the ballot than the president and the senators. Turn the ballot over on the back. You might see some names So please participate in the voting process. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you in the near future. Those are my comments. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by support by Mrs. Jarrett. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Monk,
Yes.
Ms. Garrett,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Dr. McFadden,
Yes.
Ms. Escalante,
Yes.
Mr. Rick.
Yes. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned at, I couldn't get my gavel. I tried to clap. Meeting's adjourned at 8:12 in the PM. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Stay healthy.